From now on, your pension goes straight into my account. Mom, you don't even need money anyway. Those were the words my own daughter said right to my face on a Tuesday afternoon in April 2024. Words I never imagined hearing from someone I raised all by myself after her father abandoned us. If you want to hear more stories like this, subscribe to the channel and enjoy. Let me know where you're listening to this story from in the comments right now. My name is Celia. I'm 62 years old, and I've been living in my daughter Patricia's house for 3 years, ever since she insisted I leave my little rented apartment. Mom, come live with me. That way we save money and you get to be close to the grandkids. That's what she told me back then. I believed it was a daughter's love, genuine concern. How naive I was. On that fateful afternoon, I was in the kitchen fixing lunch. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, and a crisp salad, exactly the way Patricia liked it. She got home early from work, walking through the front door wearing a face I knew all too well. It was the exact same look she wore as a teenager when she wanted something from me. Mom, I need to talk to you. It's serious. She tossed her purse onto the couch and crossed her arms, staring at me with a coldness I had been noticing more and more over the past few months. I turned off the burner and faced her, wiping my hands on my apron. What is it, honey? Did something happen at work? It's not about work, Mom. It's about you. She pulled out a chair and sat at the kitchen table, gesturing for me to do the same. My chest tightened. Conversations that started like this never ended well. I sat down slowly, trying to decode what was coming. Mom, David and I ran the numbers, and the truth is, you're costing us way too much. Her words came out with zero hesitation, straight and sharp as butcher knives. The electric bill went up, the water bill too, the groceries. You eat here every single day. I felt my face burn with shame. Patricia, I always offer to help with the bills. My pension isn't much, but— Exactly, she cut me off. Your pension isn't much, but it's money being completely wasted. You live here for free. You don't pay rent, you don't pay HOA fees, you don't pay anything. What do you even need money for, Mom? I was speechless. It was true, I didn't pay rent, but I paid my way in sweat. I scrubbed the house, cooked the meals, watched my 2 grandkids the second they got off the school bus, ironed the clothes, kept their lives running. I have my personal expenses, sweetie, my prescriptions, my clothes. We'll buy your prescriptions, and you don't need to be buying clothes all the time. You barely leave the house. Patricia was losing her patience. It's simple, Mom. From now on, your pension check is going to be automatically transferred into my account. I'll manage the money and buy whatever you need. Simple as that. The floor seemed to drop out from under me. She was asking me to hand over every last dime to my name, the one thing that gave me a shred of independence, a sliver of dignity. Patricia, that's not fair. It's my money. I worked 35 years to earn that pension. Mom, you're not getting it. She slapped her hand on the table, making me jump. You live here for free. We support you. We feed you. We put a roof over your head. It's the absolute least you can do in return. Right then, the living room door pushed open, and my son-in-law David walked in. He worked from home on Tuesdays and had clearly been listening to every word. I waited for him, always so polite to me, to step in and calm his wife down. Instead, his words hit me like a physical blow. Patricia is right, Celia. He stepped up, placing a heavy, supportive hand on his wife's shoulder. You really don't need cash. Everything you need, we provide. Frankly, you should be thanking us for keeping a roof over your head. Hot tears pricked the corners of my eyes, but I blinked hard, swallowing the lump in my throat. I would not give them the satisfaction of watching me break. And if I don't agree, I asked, my voice betraying me, coming out smaller than I wanted. Patricia and David exchanged a quick, loaded glance before she answered with a frost that froze my soul. Mom, you don't have a choice. You either agree or you can go find somewhere else to live. Simple as that. The silence that followed was deafening. I looked at my daughter's face and saw a total stranger staring back. Someone I didn't know. The little girl I had rocked to sleep, the one I had comforted through every heartbreak, supported through every life choice, had mutated into something cold and deeply calculating. I lowered my head, suddenly feeling the crushing gravity of 62 years of life pressing down on my spine. I had no savings, nowhere to run, no options. At least, that's what they thought. "All right," I said softly. My voice was barely a whisper. "I agree." Patricia smiled, a sickening look of total satisfaction. "Perfect. Tomorrow you're coming with me to the bank, and we'll get the paperwork sorted out. Oh, and Mom." She stood up, grabbing her purse. "David and I are going out for dinner tonight. You'll watch the kids when they get back from school, right?" And just like that, they walked out, leaving me alone in that kitchen, drowning in the smell of the lunch I had cooked with so much love, and the bitter, coppery taste of humiliation in my mouth. But there was one thing they didn't know. I wasn't the helpless little old lady they took me for. And agreeing in silence did not mean surrendering. It simply meant I needed time to quietly orchestrate my response. The next morning rolled in cold, one of those gray autumn dawns, where the sun just can't be bothered to show up. I woke up early, just like always. I brewed the coffee, packed the kids' lunch boxes, and waited for Patricia to come down the stairs, already dressed for the office. "Ready, Mom?" she asked, grabbing her mug of coffee without even looking me in the eye. "The bank opens at 10, so we've got time." "I'm ready," I replied, slipping into my most worn-out cardigan. Inside, my heart was hammering against my ribs, but I kept my face perfectly smooth, a portrait of quiet resignation. In the car, Patricia was on speakerphone with David, openly discussing plans, as if I were a ghost in the passenger seat. "Babe, with the extra cash every month, we can finally afford that trip to Aspen you've been wanting." "Yeah, and we'll still have enough left over to upgrade the TV in the living room." I stared out the window, watching the city blur by. Every syllable she spoke was a brutal reminder of how completely I had misjudged my own daughter's love. We pulled up to the bank right at 10 o'clock. The branch was buzzing, packed with people managing their own financial lives. Patricia practically dragged me to the teller's desk, where a young clerk greeted us with a polished corporate smile. "Good morning. How can I help you today?" "My mother needs to set up an automatic monthly transfer from her account to mine," Patricia fired back before I could even part my lips. "It's to help manage her living expenses since she stays with me." The clerk looked past her, meeting my eyes, waiting for my confirmation. "Ma'am, do you confirm you want to set this up?" Patricia gave me a sharp, discreet nudge in the ribs, and I nodded. "Yes, I confirm." "All right, I'm going to need you to sign a few documents and provide the routing details for the destination account." The girl started typing away, pulling up the forms. While the printer whirred, I let my eyes wander around the lobby. I saw a man in a sharp suit discussing investments with a manager, an older woman pulling cash from the ATM, a young couple likely opening their first joint account. Everyone there, handling their own money with autonomy, with dignity. And there I was, seconds away from signing mine over. "Celia, I just need your signature here, here, and here." The clerk tapped the yellow highlighted boxes. I gripped the pen, my hand remarkably steady. Patricia hovered right over my shoulder, practically vibrating with greed. I read every single line of that contract, even though I knew I was trapped. It was either this or the streets. I signed the papers one by one. Every stroke of ink felt like locking a padlock on my own freedom. "All set. Starting next business day, the funds will be automatically transferred on the 5th of every month," the clerk explained, handing a copy to me and a copy to Patricia. "Perfect." Patricia shoved the papers deep into her purse, terrified I might snatch them back. "Thanks. Let's go, Mom." Walking out of the bank, she was absolutely glowing. She immediately dialed David on speakerphone. "Babe, it's done. Starting next week, the money drops straight into our account." "Excellent. I knew you'd get her to cave." David's voice crackled with excitement through the phone. "Let's have dinner at your mom's tonight to celebrate. How about that?" "Perfect. We'll be there around 8. Mom." Patricia yelled toward the back seat, treating me like I was deaf. "Whip up that lasagna you make, yeah." It wasn't a request. It was a command. Once again, I was the unpaid help feeding the masters for free. "All right," I muttered from the back. When we pulled into the driveway, Patricia barely grunted a goodbye before speeding off to work. I stood alone in the living room, staring at a house that had never truly belonged to me, a place where I was only tolerated as long as I was useful, And now, as long as I was profitable. But standing there in the quiet dust motes of the morning, I allowed myself a smile. A tiny, razor-thin smile that no one caught. Because while Patricia was busy thinking she had broken me, she had no idea I was just sitting down at the chessboard. I walked upstairs to my room and grabbed my old cell phone. I had a few calls to make, wheels to put in motion. And I had time. Plenty of time to do it surgically, without rushing, without leaving a single loose thread. I dialed the first number on my list. Good morning. I'd like to schedule a consultation to discuss some personal matters. Tomorrow works perfect. Then I dialed the second number, then the third. Every call was a brick in the wall of my escape, a blueprint I had been drafting since the second Patricia spat those cruel words at me. Downstairs, I heard the heavy thud of the front door. My grandkids were home from school. I quickly shoved the phone under my pillow and hurried down to meet them with open arms, because despite the poison in this house, I loved those kids fiercely. But as I sliced apples for their snack, nodding along to their stories about recess, my mind was already living weeks in the future, mapping out the architecture of my freedom. Patricia and David thought they had me buried. They were about to find out they planted a seed. The first transfer hit Patricia's account the following Monday, May 5th, 2024. I was at the kitchen sink when I heard the victory squeal echo from the living room. "David, it cleared! Mom's money just hit the account!" Patricia paraded into the kitchen, shoving her phone screen into her husband's face while he typed at his laptop. $800 guaranteed every single month. David jumped up and spun his wife around the living room like they'd just scratched a winning lotto ticket. I kept scrubbing the plates, pretending I was deaf, but every word they said was a needle sliding under my ribs. "Babe, we can finally book that trip we've been talking about." David grabbed a legal pad and started furiously scribbling numbers. "Look at this, $800 a month. In 6 months, that's nearly $5,000. We could do Cabo by November." And that's not even all of it. Patricia dropped onto the couch beside him, tapping the notepad. "We are saving a fortune on groceries. My mom cooks lunch and dinner every day. If we eat here every night, we save at least another $1,000 a month on DoorDash and restaurants." My hand froze on the sponge. They were literally doing the math on how much they could save by bleeding me dry. Taking my pension wasn't enough. They wanted to wring the marrow out of my bones. "Hell yeah," David clapped his hands. "And hey, what about that new TV, the 65-inch OLED? 2 months of her checks and we buy it cash." Patricia started typing a list into her phone, narrating her greed out loud. New TV, Cabo trip, that sectional sofa I saw at West Elm, remodeling the master bath. It was genuinely unbelievable. They were spending my retirement before the ink was even dry on the deposit, stacking up luxury after luxury like it was a jackpot they'd earned, not the literal lifeline of a 62-year-old woman. That very evening birthed the routine that would suffocate the next few days. Patricia called right at 6. "Mom, David and I are having dinner there tonight. Do that roasted chicken and potatoes thing, okay? We'll be there at 8. It was never a request. It was always a mandate, wearing a thin mask. I dropped what I was doing and got to work. I seasoned the chicken, peeled the potatoes, tossed a fresh salad. When they walked in, right on the dot at 8, the table was set and steaming. "Hey, Mom!" Patricia waltzed in like she owned a reservation, dumping her bag and making a beeline for the dining room. David trailed in behind her, throwing a careless nod in my direction. They sat down and piled their plates high, while I stood by the counter, hovering like a waitress, to see if they needed refills. "This chicken is a little dry, Mom," Patricia noted after chewing her first bite, her face scrunched up. "You left it in too long." "And the potatoes could use more garlic," David chimed in, poking at his food like he was hunting for flaws. I swallowed a mouthful of pure rage and sat at the edge of the table, cutting myself a sliver of breast meat. They ate, and they complained. They always complained. The salad was underseasoned, the lemonade was too sweet, the table felt sticky. "Mom, starting next week, we're coming over for dinner every night," Patricia announced, scooping a second helping of potatoes. "We realized it's stupid to waste money on takeout when you're already cooking. It's pure savings for us." "Every night?" I asked, wrestling to keep my tone flat. Yeah, every night. Monday through Friday, at least. We'll figure out the weekends. She said it like she was bestowing a gift upon me. Oh, and mix up the menu, all right? I get sick of eating the same thing. David wiped his mouth with a napkin and leaned back, fully satisfied. Celia, while we're on the subject, you might as well do our laundry, too. Patricia mentioned you run the wash every day anyway, so a few extra shirts won't kill you. I stared at my own flesh and blood, waiting for her to step in to tell her husband he was pushing it, to say I already did enough. But she just nodded. He's right, Mom. We'll drop off a couple of laundry bags tomorrow. They finished eating, abandoned their greasy plates right on the table, and drifted into the living room to watch TV, loudly debating which 65-inch screen they were going to buy with their new disposable income. My income. I stayed behind in the kitchen, scraping plates, boxing leftovers, wiping down the wood. Through the window over the sink, a heavy full moon hung in the sky. How many times had I stared up at that exact same moon throughout my life? Through how many brutal nights had it been my only quiet companion? But tonight, for the very first time, looking at it stirred something entirely new inside my chest. It wasn't sorrow, it wasn't despair, it was cold, hard resolve. Because while Patricia and David were busy mapping out vacations with my money, eating my food for free, and complaining about the seasoning, I was drafting a blueprint of my own. Plans they couldn't possibly fathom. Upstairs in my bedroom drawer, buried beneath a stack of wool socks, sat a thick folder of documents I had been quietly assembling. With every passing day, a new piece of paper was added. Another puzzle piece snapping perfectly into place. I let them keep thinking they had won the war. I let them gorge themselves on a hollow victory, knowing full well that the higher they climbed on their pedestal, the more bones they were going to break when they fell. The new routine cemented itself fast. Every night, Patricia and David rolled in at 8 sharp for dinner. They ate for free, critiqued the meal, and vanished, leaving me a bomb site to clean up. And every morning, the second the house emptied out, I put my machinery to work. On the first Monday following the bank transfer, I waited until Patricia's car pulled out of the driveway and the kids were safely at school. Then I grabbed my worn leather purse and walked out the front door for the first time in weeks without telling a single soul. My first stop was the office of Henry Vance, a family attorney I had tracked down through a quiet internet search. His office was downtown, tucked inside an old but immaculately kept brick building. Celia. The lawyer greeted me with a firm, professional handshake. He was a man in his late 50s, wearing wire-rimmed glasses and a deeply serious posture. Please have a seat. On the phone, you mentioned you needed counsel regarding a domestic financial dispute. I laid it all out on his desk. Patricia's ultimatum, the coerced transfer of my pension, the daily freeloading disguised as family dinners, the pure exploitation masked as charity. He listened in absolute silence, scratching notes onto a yellow legal pad. Celia, you have absolute legal authority over your pension. No one can force you to siphon those funds away, he explained when I finally stopped talking. But I understand the volatility here, given that your housing situation is tied to the perpetrator. Mr. Vance, I want to revoke that automatic transfer, but I have to pull the trigger at the exact right moment, when I'm ready. He nodded, reading the room perfectly. I can draft the revocation paperwork right now. Whenever you're ready, you walk in here, you sign, and the cancellation takes effect immediately. I walked out of his office with a slim, discreet folder tucked under my arm, holding every legal weapon I needed. Step 1, done. The following day, while Patricia was stuck at the office, I visited 3 different local appraisers. I didn't want to leave a trail by just asking around the neighborhood. At each stop, I asked the exact same question. I need to liquidate some furniture fast. Do you know any wholesale buyers or estate liquidators? The third place gave me the golden ticket, a vintage furniture dealer that did on-the-spot appraisals and same-day removals if the price was right. You got a lot of inventory to move, ma'am? Asked the broker, a kid barely pushing 25. I do, practically a whole house, I replied, flashing a tight, enigmatic smile. I called the dealer from the sidewalk. I booked an in-home appraisal for the following Friday, a day I knew Patricia had an all-hands meeting and wouldn't be home until late. For the rest of the week, I was a ghost, operating in the margins. I snapped photos of every piece of furniture in my bedroom, the oak bookshelf in the living room I had paid for, the coffee table I had hauled over from my old apartment. If I owned it, it was getting a price tag. At night, after slinging hash for Patricia and David, I'd retreat to my room and curate my files: birth certificate, banking ledgers, old utility bills. Every single piece of paper was vetted and filed into a waterproof binder, shoved into the darkest corner of my closet. "Mom, you good?" Patricia asked on a Thursday, catching me sneaking down the stairs with my purse. "Where are you going?" My heart kicked into overdrive, but I kept my breathing slow. "Just running to the pharmacy to pick up my refills, honey. I'm all out." Ah, she didn't even lift her eyes from her screen. "Make it quick, we're coming over for dinner again. Do the beef stroganoff all right?" On Friday, the furniture appraiser knocked on the door right at noon. He was a seasoned guy in his 50s, running a critical eye over every single joint and cushion. "Celia, I can do $4,500 for the whole lot. I can back the truck up and take it today if you shake on it." $4,500 wasn't a king's ransom, but it was enough runway to take flight. "Deal, but you can't load it out until next Friday, first thing in the morning." "Not a problem. I'll leave the bill of sale and a $500 deposit." I signed the contract with a rock-steady hand. Another piece of the puzzle locked in. That night, I served the stroganoff to Patricia and David. Like clockwork, they'd gorged themselves, complained the sauce was too thin, and bailed. I washed their dishes with a smile on my face. Saturday morning, I dialed a number I had scribbled down days ago. A warm, feminine voice picked up. "Autumn Pines Retirement Community, good morning." "Good morning. I'm calling to inquire about resident vacancies." The receptionist walked me through the whole playbook. Monthly rates, included amenities, required paperwork. Autumn Pines was an independent living community, modest but dignified. A place where people my age lived on their own terms, with a safety net if the ground ever fell out. "We actually have a garden-level suite opening up next week. Would you like to schedule a tour?" "I absolutely would. Let's do Monday." I hung up and stared out my bedroom window. Down in the driveway, I watched Patricia washing her SUV, using the garden hose and the car soap I had bought with my own money. Or rather, the money she had extorted from me. But the clock was ticking down. Soon, very soon, she was going to learn that underestimating a 62-year-old woman with nothing left to lose was the most catastrophic mistake of her life. Wednesday, May 29th, 2024. It had been nearly a month since Patricia started hijacking my pension, and the stage was finally set. Every single gear in my machine was locked and loaded, a complex mechanism waiting for the final turn of the key. That morning, when Patricia padded downstairs for her coffee, I was already at the island with a smile plastered on my face. A real dangerous smile, not the plastic one I'd been wearing for weeks. "Morning, sweetie." I greeted her with a chipper tone that made her freeze halfway down the stairs and eye me with suspicion. "Morning, Mom. You seem different today." "I'm just happy," I replied, pouring steaming coffee into her travel mug. "You know, I was thinking, Friday marks exactly 1 month since we started our new financial arrangement. I want to celebrate by cooking a really special dinner for you and David." Patricia's eyes lit up like slot machines. Special dinner meant expensive ingredients, prime cuts of steak or fresh seafood, all on the house as usual. "Really, Mom? What kind of special dinner?" "Oh, it's a surprise," I said, giving her a little wink. "But I promise you, it's going to be a night you will never, ever forget. Show up at 7:30. I want everything to be absolutely perfect when you walk in." Patricia immediately whipped out her phone and started texting David. I could read the reflection of the screen in the window glass. "Mom's making a fancy dinner Friday. Finally learned her place. LOL. "We'll be there, Mom. Go all out." She grabbed her bag and hustled out the door, desperate to call her husband and gloat about the free feast. The second the deadbolt clicked, my smile vanished. There was no joy left in my bones, just cold, absolute execution. I grabbed the landline and started making the final calls. "Hello, Autumn Pines. This is Celia. I'm confirming my move-in for Friday afternoon." "Perfect, Celia. We'll have the keys ready at 3 o'clock. Second call. "Hello, Apex Movers. I need to confirm the haul-out for Friday morning, 9 a.m. sharp." "Confirmed, ma'am. 2-hour window, just like we drew it up." Third call, the kill shot. "Mr. Vance, it's Celia. I need the bank transfer revocation executed on Thursday afternoon. Can you make it happen?" Not a problem, Celia. I'll drop the paperwork at the branch at 3. By 4 o'clock, the automatic transfer is officially dead. I hung up the receiver and walked upstairs. The heavy suitcase I had bought in cash a few days prior was buried in the back of my closet. I started pulling clothes off hangers. Not everything, just the essentials. The rest was getting donated or sold off with the wood. Thursday morning, I walked into the bank lobby, shoulder to shoulder with Henry Vance. The exact same clerk who had processed the extortion was now processing the cancellation, her brow severely furrowed. "Are you absolutely sure about this, Celia? This is going to sever the automatic payments entirely." "I am completely sure," I replied, signing my name with a heavy, deliberate stroke. "Just so you know, the transfer scheduled for tomorrow, the 5th, is still going to clear because it's locked in the queue. The block only applies to future cycles. Even better, let them taste one more drop of blood. It would be their last." That afternoon, while Patricia was stuck in her cubicle, I combed through the house. Using the quiet hours, I walked through the rooms and reclaimed every fragment of my existence that was scattered around. Framed photos, paperbacks, tiny personal trinkets. It all went into a cardboard box that I stashed in my trunk. Friday morning, my eyes snapped open at 6 a.m. The muscle was arriving at 9, and I had a lot of runway to clear. I packed the last of my sweaters, sealed my documents in a waterproof sleeve, and sat on the edge of the mattress waiting. At 9 on the dot, the doorbell rang. 2 guys in matching work shirts walked in and started stripping the house to the studs. The bed frame, the small wardrobe, the dresser, my reading chair, the nightstand, it all vanished into the back of a box truck in under an hour. "Where's this load heading, ma'am?" the foreman asked, wiping his brow. "The vintage liquidators down on Elm Street. They're expecting the drop at 11. The house suddenly felt hollow. My bedroom was completely gutted, nothing but bare drywall and the faint, echoing smell of memories. The oak bookshelf in the living room was gone, leaving a glaring, dusty rectangle on the carpet. Patricia's house was now riddled with physical voids where my life used to sit. I scrubbed every room I had ever occupied. I swept, I mopped, I wiped down the baseboards. I was leaving the crime scene spotless. No one was ever going to say I was a messy tenant. At noon, I zipped my suitcase and called a cab. The driver hoisted my bag into the trunk while I took one final, lingering look at the property. It had been my address for 3 years, but it had never been my home. I was never truly welcome. Autumn pines greeted me with warm, genuine smiles. My new suite was modest, but it breathed. A soft bed, a clean closet, and a plush armchair positioned right by a window overlooking a sprawling, manicured garden. For the first time in months, my chest stopped hurting. At 7 p.m., while I was folding linens in my new room, my cell phone lit up. It was Patricia. I didn't touch it. I let it vibrate across the nightstand until it dumped to voicemail. 5 minutes later, it rang again. And again. And again. I powered the phone down, dropped it into the drawer, and walked down to the community dining hall. There was going to be a special dinner tonight, absolutely. Just not with my parasitic daughter. I was dining alone, raising a glass to my own resurrected freedom. Patricia was buzzing in the driver's seat, navigating the gridlock toward the house. Riding shotgun, David scrolled through his phone, occasionally grumbling about the brutal Friday night traffic. This traffic is a nightmare. Patricia laid on the horn as the car in front of her slept through a green light. It's already 7:15. My mom said 7:30 sharp, and you know how psychotic she gets about being on time. "Relax, babe. We're 5 blocks away. We'll make it." David pocketed his phone. "I'm curious to see what this special dinner is all about. Sounds like your mom finally accepted her reality, huh? About time she showed some gratitude for the charity we're providing." Patricia laughed, a cruel, airy sound. "Right. I think it finally clicked in her head that without us, she's practically homeless. She's probably doing that braised short rib she makes, or maybe shrimp. She loves blowing money on stupid luxuries when she has cash, which, technically, is our cash now." David smirked. "Saw the second transfer clear yesterday. $800 right on the dot. 6 months, and we are drinking margaritas on the beach." They finally pulled into the driveway at 7:28. Patricia threw the car in park and they both hopped out, David adjusting the collar of the button-down shirt he had worn specifically for the feast. "Weird," Patricia muttered, staring up at the house. "There's not a single light on." "She's probably just tied up in the kitchen," David guessed, taking the front steps two at a time. Patricia dug her keys out of her purse. "Mom, we're here!" she yelled, shoving the key into the deadbolt. The door swung open with a faint creak, and then nothing. Just a heavy, suffocating silence that made Patricia's stomach drop before her brain even knew why. "Mom!" she called out again, stepping into the foyer and slapping the wall for the light switch. The bulbs flickered on, and Patricia stopped dead in her tracks. David bumped into her back and immediately froze. The oak bookshelf that had flanked the sofa for 3 years was gone. The void against the wall was screaming at them, a clean, bright rectangle on the paint, showing exactly where the wood used to sit. The rug that always sat under her mother's reading chair was missing too. What the? Patricia took a few shaky steps into the living room. "David, where is my mom's stuff?" "I don't know. Maybe she moved it upstairs." But his voice was hollow, stripped of any confidence. Patricia bolted down the hallway toward her mother's bedroom, David hot on her heels. She shoved the door open and hit the lights. The room was utterly gutted. The bed where Celia had slept for 3 years was gone. The wardrobe vanished. The dresser stuffed with her clothes erased. The reading chair where she spent her afternoons gone. Nothing left but 4 sterile walls, freshly swept hardwood floors, and the sharp chemical sting of pine sol in the air. No, 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 no. Patricia rushed into the room, ripping open the closet doors. Empty. She sprinted into the attached bathroom. The toothbrush, the face creams, the pill bottles wiped clean. "Patricia, look at this," David yelled from the living room. She sprinted back and found her husband standing over the coffee table, holding a plain white envelope. Her name was written across the front in an elegant, sweeping cursive, her mother's handwriting. With trembling fingers, Patricia snatched the envelope and ripped it open. Inside was a single sheet of folded paper. She opened it and began reading aloud, her voice fracturing on every syllable. "Dear Patricia, if you are reading this, it means you arrived for the special dinner I promised. I regret to inform you that there will be no dinner tonight, nor tomorrow, nor ever again. You told me I didn't need money. You said I lived for free, that I should be grateful. You were right about one thing. I don't need much. That is why I sold all my furniture and moved to a place where I will be treated with the dignity a 62-year-old woman deserves. As for the money you coveted so desperately, please be advised that I have revoked the automatic transfer. Starting next month, my pension returns to where it belongs, with me. Do not try to find me. I will not answer your calls. I need time to rebuild the life you bulldozed with your greed. Maybe one day you will understand what you did. Maybe one day you will know exactly how it feels to be treated like a burden, a parasite, by the one person on earth who is supposed to love you. Take care, Celia." The paper slipped through Patricia's fingers, drifting to the floor like a dead leaf. She stood, frozen, jaw unhinged, her brain violently rejecting the reality of the ink. "She's gone," Patricia whispered, talking to the empty room more than to David. "She sold everything. She left. And she cut the money." David snatched the paper off the floor, his eyes darting frantically across the lines. "Patricia, that money. We already budgeted for it. The trip, the financing on the TV, the bathroom remodel." But Patricia wasn't listening. She ran blindly back into the gutted bedroom, as if hoping it was just a glitch in the matrix, that if she just opened the door a second time, the bed would be there, and her mother would be sitting on the edge, smiling. But the room was still an empty void, echoing the sudden, terrifying crater in her own chest. "Mom!" she screamed, her voice bouncing violently off the bare drywall. "Mom, where are you?" Only the silence answered back. A cold, absolute silence that spoke louder than a siren. Her mother had vanished, and deep in her bones, Patricia knew she had dug the grave herself. She collapsed onto the floor of the empty room, her phone gripped in both hands, violently shaking as she dialed the number for the 10th consecutive time. Every unanswered ring was a jagged piece of glass twisting in her ribs. "Come on, Mom, please pick up." She practically shrieked when the automated voicemail kicked in yet again. "Mom, we need to talk, please." Out in the living room, David had his phone glued to his ear, rapid-firing calls to every mutual contact they had in Celia's orbit. He started with Patricia's sister, who lived 2 states over. "Camilla, it's David. Do you have any idea where your mom is? She's gone." He paused, his face twisting. "What do you mean, not your problem? She's your mother too. Camilla, do not hang up, damn it." He pulled the phone away, staring at the screen in pure frustration. His sister-in-law had dead-ended him. "Patricia," David yelled, stepping into the hallway. "Start dialing her friends, those older ladies from the knitting group she used to hang out with before she moved in here." Patricia wiped a streak of mascara off her cheek with the back of her hand and scrolled through her contacts. She hit dial on Mrs. Higgins's number. "Hello, Mrs. Higgins. It's Patricia Celia's daughter. Do you happen to know where my mom is?" The dry, crackling voice on the other end of the line was like sandpaper. "I certainly do. And if you were half a decent daughter, you'd know too. Lose my number." Click. She hung up on me. Patricia stared at David, completely shell-shocked. "Mrs. Higgins was always so sweet to me." "Try someone else." David pushed panic, bleeding into his tone. Patricia dialed 3 more names on the roster. Every single one delivered the exact same medicine. They either played dumb or flat out refused to give her the coordinates. One of them didn't hold back at all. "Your mother swore us to secrecy. And honestly, Patricia, after what you pulled with her money, you don't have the right to know." While Patricia kept getting doors slammed in her face over the phone, David had slumped onto the couch, booting up his laptop to check their joint checking account. What loaded on the screen made the blood drain from his face. "Patricia, get in here," he shouted. She sprinted into the living room, still clutching her phone. "What is it?" David spun the laptop around to face her. "Look at the pending transactions, the automatic routing." Patricia snatched the laptop right out of his hands, her eyes scanning the ledger. It was right there, in black and white. Where the scheduled deposit usually sat, there was only a stark, automated system flag. "Recurring transfer revoked. On May 29th, 2024. No, 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 no." She started clicking the trackpad like a maniac, refreshing the browser as if the code might magically change. How did she do this? She can't just kill the wire without me authorizing it. "Yes, she can, Patricia. It was her name on the account." David dragged both hands through his hair, a full-blown panic attack setting in. "What do we do now? We already spent it. The financing on the OLED, the non-refundable deposit for Cabo, the credit cards we maxed out because we thought we had 800 extra a month clearing in perpetuity." The brutal math of reality crashed over Patricia like a wave of ice water. They had leveraged money that didn't exist yet, betting their entire lifestyle on the assumption that the extortion would last forever. "What's the damage, David?" she asked, her voice trembling. $3,800 on the visa, the down payment for the resort, plus the first 2 installments for the TV hitting next week. He ran the grim arithmetic in his head. "We are in the hole for almost $6,000 right now, Patricia." She collapsed onto the cushions, the sheer weight of the impending financial ruin finally snapping her spine. "We have to track her down. We have to make her come back. We'll just tell her it was a huge misunderstanding." A misunderstanding? David stared at her, caught somewhere between disbelief and absolute disgust. "Patricia, we stole your mother's money. We held her hostage and forced her to sign over her entire pension check. In what universe is that a misunderstanding?" "Don't say it like that." Patricia shot up, immediately defensive. "We were just stepping in to manage her finances better." "You mean we were spending her finances?" David stood up, towering over her. "That cash was never ours to begin with, Patricia, and now she's in the wind. We are buried in debt with absolutely no way to cover the spread." Patricia finally broke. Real, ugly tears. Not the tears of a frustrated child, but the deep, heaving sobs of someone who just watched the bridge burn behind them. "I have to find her, David." I have to explain. I have to. You have to apologize. David finished her sentence, his voice dropping into a grim, hollow register. You have to look her in the eye, admit exactly what you did, and beg for forgiveness. But how do you beg forgiveness from a ghost? Patricia grabbed her phone and dialed one more time, and just like every other attempt, it went straight to the machine. That night, Patricia and David sat paralyzed in the empty house, anchored to the living room sofa, suffocating in the dense silence of their own toxic choices. Every blank patch of wallpaper where Celia's life used to be was a glaring monument to what they had destroyed. And far worse than the financial bleeding, far worse than the debt collectors that would inevitably start calling, was the slow, agonizing realization sinking into Patricia's bones she had erased her own mother from her life, and she had no idea if she would ever get her back. Saturday morning, Patricia woke up stiff and aching on the living room couch. She hadn't been able to face her own bed the night before. Every time she closed her eyes, the image of her mother's gutted bedroom burned through her eyelids. The bare walls, the accusing silence of a space that Celia used to fill. David was in the kitchen, fumbling with the coffee maker, clearly lost without Celia there to run the morning logistics like she always did. The coffee came out watery and bitter, but Patricia drank it anyway, gripping the ceramic mug with both hands like it was a lifeline in a storm. "Read the letter again," David said, sliding into a chair with the crumpled paper in his hands. "There has to be a breadcrumb in there, something that points to where she went." Patricia flattened the letter on the table and scanned it again, this time dissecting every syllable, every comma, hunting for a geographic tell. "Look at this." She tapped a fingernail against a specific line. She says, "I move to a place where I will be treated with the dignity a 62-year-old woman deserves." What kind of place is that? A retirement community? David guessed. She fits the demographic, and they can process move-ins pretty fast if there's a vacancy. A fresh spike of guilt twisted violently in Patricia's chest. Her mother, a perfectly capable, independent woman, had been driven into an assisted living facility because her own daughter had made her homeless. But which one? There's at least half a dozen communities in this zip code alone. "Then we sweep them all," David said, locking his jaw. "Start making calls right now." Patricia grabbed her phone and opened Google Maps. Golden Years Manor, Whispering Pines, St. Vincent's Rest, Autumn Pines, Hope Haven. The directory was endless. She tapped the first number. "Good morning. My name is Patricia, and I'm trying to locate my mother, Celia. She recently relocated to an assisted living facility and—" "I'm sorry, ma'am. We don't have anyone by that name in our registry," the receptionist replied in a crisp, rehearsed tone before hanging up. "Facility 2, same dead end. Facility 3, identical response." At the fourth facility, the woman on the line paused before answering. "Ma'am, we operate under strict privacy protocols. Even if your mother were a resident here, I couldn't confirm her status without her direct authorization." Patricia's heart redlined. "So she is there. Please, I just need to speak with her. She's my mother." "As I stated, I can neither confirm nor deny. If you'd like, you can come down in person and take it up with administration." Click. "This is it." Patricia shot up from her chair. "She didn't deny it, David. She's got to be there." Just as they grabbed their keys, the doorbell rang. Patricia swung the door open to find her next-door neighbor, Mrs. Miller, standing on the porch, arms tightly crossed, radiating absolute disgust. "Patricia, where is your mother? I haven't seen her on the porch in 2 days." She went out of town to handle some errands," Patricia lied, fumbling over her words. "Bullshit," Mrs. Miller fired back without a flinch. "I watched a 2-man crew haul her bedroom furniture out of here yesterday morning. I saw the whole thing from my kitchen window. She moved out, didn't she?" The tears surged back to Patricia's eyes. "Mrs. Miller, please, if you know where she went—" "I know exactly where she went." The older woman didn't blink. "Celia told me everything before she left. She told me what you did to her, how you hijacked her checks, how you treated her like an indentured servant." "It wasn't like that," Patricia stammered, throwing up a weak defense. "It wasn't." "Then how exactly was it, Patricia?" Mrs. Miller took a step forward, her voice dripping with venom. That woman raised you single-handedly after your deadbeat father skipped town. She worked double shifts to put you through school, and the second she needed a soft place to land, you robbed her blind and treated her like trash. Every single word was a slap across the jaw. I know I messed up. That's why I need to find her. I have to beg her to forgive me. She made me swear not to leak her location, and I intend to keep that promise. Mrs. Miller turned on her heel to walk away, but paused at the edge of the porch. But I will tell you this much. Your mother is doing just fine. She's in a place where people actually respect her, where she's treated with dignity, something she never got a shred of while living under your roof. And with that, she walked away, leaving Patricia standing in the doorway, utterly destroyed. Inside the house, the landline started ringing. David picked it up. It was the kids' elementary school. Hello, yes, this is their father. Wait, what do you mean they're crying? They're asking for their grandmother. David shot a panicked look at Patricia. No, she won't be able to pick them up today. Yes, I'm leaving right now. He slammed the receiver down and turned to his wife. The kids are having a meltdown in the principal's office. They said Grandma always picks them up on Fridays, and she never showed. They're terrified something happened to her. The full crushing weight of reality finally broke over Patricia's head like an avalanche. It wasn't just her who had lost a mother. Her children had lost their grandmother, the woman who waited at the school gates, who cut the crusts off their sandwiches, who patiently walked them through their math homework. What did I do, David? Patricia collapsed onto the couch, her chest heaving with violent sobs. What the hell did I do to my mom? David sat down beside her, entirely out of words. There was no comfort to offer, because there is no cure for a poison you willingly swallow. And somewhere across town, Celia was quietly building a new empire. A life where she held value, where she commanded respect. A life entirely free from the daughter who sold her out. The days that followed were a waking nightmare for Patricia. She obsessively dialed her mother's cell 10, 20, 30 times a day, always hitting the exact same brick wall of Celia's recorded voice. I can't come to the phone right now. Leave a message. Mom, please pick up, Patricia begged the voicemail machine. I know I messed up. I know I was a monster to you. Please just give me 5 minutes to apologize. But the phone never rang back, just the endless, suffocating silence. By the following Monday, David was entrenched at the kitchen table, surrounded by a fortress of past-due bills, punching numbers into a calculator with a face like a graveyard. When Patricia walked in from the school drop-off, he flagged her down. Patricia, sit down. We need to look the devil in the eye. She took a seat, her stomach instantly tying itself into knots. Is it really that bad? David pushed the stack of printed statements across the wood. It's worse. The visa is maxed out at $6,200. The non-refundable deposit for the resort was $1,500. The financing on that OLED TV locks us into 6 more payments of $400 a pop. And without your mom's pension artificially inflating our income, what's the bottom line to clear it all? Patricia asked, the air leaving her lungs. 10 grand, minimum. And we have absolutely nowhere to pull that kind of liquidity from, Patricia. Our paychecks barely keep the lights on as it is. The financial hemorrhage was catastrophic, but it didn't even touch the agonizing ache in Patricia's chest. Her kids cried themselves to sleep every night, demanding to know where their grandmother was. Her youngest, barely 6, had essentially stopped eating, whining that Mom's food tasted like plastic compared to Grandma's. It wasn't until Tuesday that Patricia finally caught a break in the clouds. She was obsessively combing through the few scraps her mother had left behind, old receipts, loose photos, when she fished a crumpled piece of glossy paper out of the very back of a desk drawer. It was a trifold brochure, Autumn Pines Retirement Community, where dignity meets care. Her heart hammered against her ribs. It was a flare in the dark. David, I found it. I know where she is. Patricia sprinted into the living room, waving the flyer like a winning ticket. They didn't waste a second. They threw themselves into the car and peeled out toward the address printed on the back. Autumn Pines was tucked away in a quiet, heavily wooded part of town, operating out of a sprawling, beautifully maintained manor flanked by manicured flower beds. Patricia practically sprinted from the parking lot straight to the front desk. A middle-aged woman wearing a name tag that read Sonia, Guest Relations, looked up with a polished, unbothered smile. "Good afternoon, how can I help you?" "My mother, Celia, is she here?" Patricia blurted out her words, tripping over themselves. "I desperately need to speak with her. Please, just tell me she's in this building." The receptionist's demeanor shifted instantly. The warm smile evaporated, replaced by a wall of corporate neutrality. "One moment, please." She pulled a clipboard from beneath the desk, ran her finger down a printed ledger, and looked back at Patricia with eyes that gave away absolutely nothing. "Ma'am, we operate under strict privacy guidelines. I cannot confirm or deny the presence of any resident without prior authorization." "But she's my mother." Patricia slammed both hands flat on the granite counter. "I just need to see her 5 minutes, I'm begging you." Sonia didn't flinch. "I understand you're upset, but these protocols exist specifically to protect the people who live here. If a Celia were residing here, and I am not confirming that she is, she would have to manually authorize any incoming guests." "So she is here." Patricia clung to the slip of the tongue like a drowning sailor gripping driftwood. "Please just buzz her room. Just tell her I'm standing right here, that I have to talk to her." Sonia picked up the desk phone and dialed an internal extension, cupping her hand over the receiver and speaking in a hushed tone Patricia couldn't decipher. She waited a few beats, muttered 2 words, and hung up. "I'm sorry, but the answer is no. The resident is not accepting visitors at this time." "No!" Patricia screamed, tears spilling over her eyelashes. "Mom, I know you're in there. Please, Mom, just listen to me." David grabbed her arm, trying to pull her back, but she ripped herself free and lunged toward the residential hallway. Instantly, a security guard materialized from the shadows, planting his massive frame squarely in her path. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to de-escalate, or I will physically remove you from the premises." The guard spoke with absolute authority, though his tone stayed level. Patricia froze, chest heaving, staring wildly down the long corridor where somewhere behind one of those doors, her mother was sitting so agonizingly close, yet sitting in a different universe. "Mom," she whimpered, her knees finally giving out. "Please, I am so sorry." David caught her before she hit the tile, practically carrying her toward the sliding glass exit. At the door, Patricia threw one final desperate look back at the desk. "Please, just give her a message. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I was a monster and that I love her." Sonia offered a slow, empathetic nod. "I'll pass it along." The ride back to the house was a funeral march. Patricia sobbed into her hands while David drove in total defeated silence. They had pinpointed Celia on a map, but the geography meant absolutely nothing. She didn't want to look at them. And sitting in that passenger seat, Patricia finally understood the gravity of her actions. Losing her mother wasn't about the physical distance. It was about incinerating a bridge so violently that the ashes couldn't even be swept up. A full week bled by. 7 straight days of Patricia driving to Autumn Pines, standing in the lobby, begging to see the woman who gave birth to her. 7 straight days of taking the exact same polite, impenetrable rejection from Sonia. "I'm sorry, she is still not accepting visitors." But on the 8th morning, when Patricia dragged herself through the double doors, eyes swollen shut from crying, wearing the wrinkled clothes of a woman who hadn't slept in a week, the script flipped. "Patricia," Sonia called out before she even reached the desk. "Celia has agreed to see you, but only you, no husband, and you have exactly 15 minutes. Patricia's heart stalled in her chest, then kicked into a frantic sprint. "Are you serious? She's letting me in?" "Visitors lounge, first door on your right," and Sonia locked eyes with her dead serious. "Do not blow this. It might be the only shot you ever get." On legs that felt like wet sand, Patricia walked down the hall and pushed open the door to a small, sunlit parlor. It was cozy, plush armchairs, potted ferns, a coffee table stacked with magazines. And sitting in a high-backed chair right by the glass was her mother. Celia looked completely transformed. She was wearing a simple but beautifully cut dress. Her hair was professionally styled, but it was the posture that took Patricia's breath away. There was a quiet power and ironclad dignity radiating off her that Patricia hadn't seen since she was a little girl. She looked whole. She looked at peace. "Mom," Patricia whispered, the tears instantly breaking loose. "Sit down." Celia pointed to the sofa opposite her. Her voice was terrifyingly calm, controlled, stripped of any visible emotion. Patricia perched on the very edge of the cushion, wringing her hands nervously in her lap. "Mom, I am so sorry. I was a monster to you. I don't know what infected my brain. Patricia." Celia cut her off, raising a single finger. "I didn't let you in here to listen to you grovel. I brought you in here because there are a few facts you need to swallow." Patricia nodded, frantically swiping the tears from her jaw. "Anything, Mom. Whatever you want." Celia leaned back in the armchair, staring out the window at the gardens for a long beat before speaking. "You told me I didn't need money. You told me I lived under your roof for free and that I should be on my knees thanking you for it. You know what? You were half right." Patricia opened her mouth to argue, but Celia bulldozed right over her. "I don't need a lot of money. This facility right here, Autumn Pines, they charge me $400 a month. That's it. $400. That covers my private suite, 3 hot meals a day, housekeeping, social events, and most importantly, basic human respect." She snapped her gaze from the window and drove it straight into her daughter's pupils. "Something I never got a scrap of in your house." "Mom, I never meant to disrespect you. You extorted me." Celia didn't raise her voice, but the words hit like a hammer. "You backed me into a corner and forced me to sign over my entire pension. $1,420. I pay $400 for my life here. That leaves me with over $1,000 in pure profit every single month, Patricia. $1,000 that I spend exactly how I want, when I want, without ever asking your permission or feeling like a parasite." Patricia dropped her chin to her chest, the radioactive heat of pure shame burning her throat. "You want to know what I do with that cash?" Celia pressed on. "I buy the hardcovers I always wanted to read. I pay for pottery classes down in the rec room. I slip a 20 to the residents here who don't have families sending them money. I stash a little in a rainy day fund. And for the first time in 3 godforsaken years, I actually own my own life." "Mom, I get it. I see that you're thriving here, but what about your grandkids? They cry for you every single night, and I need you, Mom." For the very first time, the armor on Celia's face cracked just a fraction of an inch. "How are my grandchildren?" "Destroyed." Patricia admitted the dam breaking completely. "Lucas is practically starving himself. Julia sobs into her pillow every night. They ask about you constantly, Mom, and I don't even know how to look them in the eye." Celia closed her eyes, pulling in a long, slow breath. When she opened them, the steel had returned. "You are going to look them in the eye, and you are going to tell them the truth. You are going to tell them that their mother treated their grandmother like dirt, and that Grandma had to leave to protect herself." "Mom, please come home. I swear to God it'll be different. I'll rip up the bank papers. I'll treat you like a queen. "No, Patricia," Celia cut her off. The anger was gone, replaced by something much more permanent. "I am never moving back into that house. This is my home now. Under this roof, I am Celia. I am not your unpaid maid. I am not your ATM. I am a human being with actual value." Patricia sobbed, burying her face in her hands. "So that's it. I lost you forever." Celia stood up from the armchair and walked over to the glass, looking down at the courtyard where a group of residents were sitting around a patio table, laughing in the afternoon sun. "You haven't lost me forever, but you have permanently lost the right to have me on your terms. If you truly want to fix the rot inside you, you're going to have to prove it. With time, with sweat. Words mean absolutely nothing to me anymore." "How? Tell me how to prove it." Patricia stood up, desperate for a lifeline. "Learn how to survive without bleeding me dry. Fix your own financial disaster without digging into my pockets. Teach my grandchildren what it actually means to respect their elders. And maybe, just maybe, if you genuinely put in the work, I will consider letting you back into my life. But it happens on my clock, Patricia, never yours. Sonia tapped lightly on the open doorframe. Celia, your 15 minutes are up. Celia nodded. She turned and looked at her daughter one final time. You can go now, Patricia. Take care of my grandkids, and take care of yourself.
And she walked out of the room, leaving Patricia completely alone with the crushing gravity of her own arrogance. 3 months bled away after that conversation in the Autumn Pines visiting room. 90 days that violently dismantled Patricia's life and rebuilt it from the studs up. The first phase was pure financial agony. She and David had to eat the cancellation fees on the Cabo trip,
Box up the 65-inch OLED TV they had barely used, and grovel to the bank for a hardship payment plan on their maxed-out credit cards. We are cutting the fat off everything, David had announced during that brutal first week. No DoorDash, no date nights, no impulse buys on Amazon. Patricia was forced to actually learn how to cook, rather than just throwing frozen boxes into the microwave. Her first few attempts were disasters. She scorched the rice, undercooked the beans, and heavily oversalted the chicken. But slowly armed with YouTube tutorials and the faint muscle memory of watching her mother operate in the kitchen, she found her footing. "Mom, this actually tastes good," Lucas mumbled one night, nearly 2 months into the ordeal. Patricia felt a jagged cocktail of pride and deep sorrow. Pride that she hadn't poisoned them, and sorrow that it took losing her mother to learn how to do the bare minimum. She also had to take over the invisible machinery Celia used to run. Doing the school pickups, fighting through third-grade math homework, separating the darks from the lights, scrubbing the baseboards. Every single chore was a physical reminder of the sheer volume of labor her mother had executed in total silence, without a shred of gratitude. One afternoon, while folding laundry, Patricia just broke. David found her sitting on the linoleum floor of the laundry room, surrounded by piles of warm towels, weeping into her hands. "She did all of this, David. All of it. And I never thanked her once. I just bitched that the chicken was dry, or that she folded the shirts wrong." David slid down the wall and put a heavy arm around her shoulders. "I know. I'm just as guilty. I co-signed every word of it. We were absolute monsters to her." That was the week Patricia started writing the letters. Since Celia was screening her calls and demanded space, Patricia decided to write one physical letter a week, hand-delivering it to the front desk at Autumn Pines. In the first letter, she didn't just dump empty apologies. She gave concrete proof. "Mom, I tried making your roasted chicken and potatoes tonight. It took me 3 hours, and it came out burnt on the outside and raw on the inside. I finally understand the sheer effort you poured into every plate of food you put in front of us." The second letter was about the money. "Mom, we're slowly digging out of the debt. We killed all the luxuries. I finally learned that the money we stole from you was just disposable income to us, but it was absolute survival for you. I will never strip someone of their financial dignity again." In the letters that followed, she updated Celia on the kids, how Lucas had pinned a crayon drawing of Grandma to his bulletin board, how Julia had written her English essay on the person I admire most, and spent 3 pages detailing everything her grandmother did for her. Celia never wrote back, but Patricia kept writing every single week without fail. Then in the 4th month, the ice cracked. Patricia was pushing a cart through the local grocery store with the kids when she spotted her mother in the cereal aisle. Celia was flanked by 2 other women from the retirement community, throwing her head back and laughing at something one of them had just said. Patricia froze by the end cap just watching her. Her mother looked vibrant, genuinely deeply happy. The chronic tension was gone from her shoulders. That exhausted, hollowed-out look she used to carry was completely erased. She was glowing. Julia spotted her first. "Grandma!" The little girl screamed, taking off down the aisle before Patricia could even grab her jacket. Celia spun around, her eyes going wide as she instinctively threw her arms open, catching her granddaughter mid-air. Lucas sprinted right behind her, and right there, beneath the fluorescent lights of aisle 4, Celia buried her face in her grandchildren's hair, tears streaming down her cheeks. Patricia approached slowly, keeping a highly respectful distance. "Hi, Mom." Celia looked up at her, letting the silence stretch for a long, heavy moment. "Patricia, are you doing okay?" Patricia asked, the words catching in her throat. "I'm doing exceptionally well, actually." Celia stroked the back of Lucas's head. "I've been getting your letters." Patricia's pulse spiked. "You have? I wasn't sure if you were just throwing them away." "I read them. Every single line." Celia took a slow breath. "I can see that you are putting in the work." "I am, Mom, I swear to God. It's not perfect. I still screw up all the time. But I am trying to build the daughter you actually deserved from day one." Celia gave a slow, measured nod. She looked down at the two kids clinging to her legs, then back up at Patricia. "How about you all come visit me at the community next Sunday for lunch? I'll roast that chicken you guys like." Julia and Lucas erupted, literally jumping up and down on the linoleum. The tears immediately flooded Patricia's vision. "Are you serious, Mom?" "But there are ground rules." Celia's voice hardened, leaving zero room for debate. "I am staying at Autumn Pines. You are going to continue managing your own household, and I dictate exactly when and how we see each other. Do we have a deal?" "Yes. Yes, Mom, absolutely. Your terms." And right there next to the boxes of oatmeal began the slow, surgical reconstruction of a bridge that had been incinerated by pure greed and was finally being rebuilt with humility. Months down the line, Patricia finally absorbed the most brutal, vital lesson her mother had ever taught her. Love isn't a ledger. It isn't about leverage or control or extracting value. It's about respect. It's about granting absolute dignity to the people whose blood runs in your veins. And Celia finally got to live out her days with the freedom and the reverence she had earned 100 times over.